Hello and welcome to the Non-League podcast. After a month or so spell out, maybe a bit longer, we're finally back, as I'm sure you've all been waiting for. And today hosting, it's me, Harvey Hinkler, and I'm joined by the other three regulars. Jake Adams is here.
Hello.
James Noble is here.
Hello.
And most importantly, we are honoured to be joined by Vera superstar Ben Robinson. Do you want to tell us what's happened in your career in the last couple of weeks, Ben?
I knew this was going to come. Anyways, so yeah, not the Sunday gone, but the Sunday before that, I died in Vera. So yeah, I've resurrected, come back for the podcast. So lucky yous.
Yeah, he's also been seen in drug dens, coming off of trains, looking very dramatic at a text message, and then having some inappropriate contact with Vera in a post-mortem.
Hasn't confirmed whether he enjoyed it or not, though. So it's down for debate.
But no, very very proud of you getting on the telly.
Thank you.
Big things to come, I'm sure, for Ben Robinson in the acting world. His agent, he seems to be very proud with his lead role in Vera. As his agent put it on.
What's been advertised as.
Bless her. On Twitter, calling the role a lead role. And do you know what? You're with a murder victim. It's an important role. It's one that needs filling. He's a utility player. He contributes. It's vital that he's there.
He's the English old nanny.
You know what? I mean, a lot of people have been taking the piss, but you know what? I'll take the compliments that come with it as well. I'll take the compliments.
I'm sure you will, and you take the money. That's a story for another day. And we'll move on to some actual football now on the non-league podcast, but we don't start with league football, we start with cup football, as Barnet played on Monday night. They are the lowest ranked team left in the FA Cup. They're the only non-league side left in the FA Cup, and they earned themselves a replay on Monday night in a thrilling 3-3 draw against Brentford, just one round after knocking out Sheffield United with a 1-0 win at Bramall Lane. And how impressive has this run been from a side that could have depleted mentality with being knocked out of the Football League last season? Jake, what are you thinking of their run so far?
I think it's very impressive because obviously if you check the league table for the National League, it's a team which isn't even in the top half of the table. It's closer to the it's close to being the bottom of the table than it is the top. So it's a good run for them so far. Obviously, it's quite a sceptical draw when you consider the penalty decision for Brentford in the 3-3 draw. But to come back, obviously, when they were 3-2 down, it's a testament to them and their character to force the replay. Obviously, quite an impressive run, getting a good win against a tin pot side of Sheffield United. But it's still a good run for them nevertheless. And
right, so are Arsenal still in the FA Cup, Jake?
No, sorry. And I look forward to the replay. Hopefully they can get through.
I can't really talk, can I, either?
None of our sides are left in the FA Cup.
No.
Yeah.
Well, we can enjoy it as neutrals. I hope Barnet go all the way and win it, so then if we lose to the winners, there's no real shame.
Oh, yeah.
If you lose the Barnet, that'd be amazing.
But yeah, they've had a weird time in the league recently, Barnet, but they seem to be compensating. They've got Darren Curry in temporary charge at the minute, and I would not be surprised if that became permanent charge. Permanent charge? That's not a way to say it. Permanently in charge is what I meant to say. His uncle, Tony Curry, West Ham, Leeds and Sheffield United fame, England international, and Darren Curry himself played at a decent level, played for Ipswich in the Championship, and amongst other sides, is proving himself quite well. He's a very inexperienced manager. I don't think is an insulting thing to say, but he's doing well with what he's been given so far. They had a very disappointing loss at bottom of the league for injury a couple of weeks ago, quite an embarrassing 4-0 defeat, which was just off the back of that big FA Cup win. But with that 3-3 against Brentford, like you mentioned there, they were very unfortunate with the penalty decision, and they scored an absolute belter, didn't they, James?
It was that free kick was satisfying to watch from a left footer's perspective as well. From the left foot club, I'm always glad to see us get represented. And are you guys left footed?
No,
I'm right.
Right foot.
I'm both footed. I'm perfect. No, I'm right.
Cazola.
No, I'm right footed.
But no, brilliant free kick and in off the bar as well, which I think always adds like 10% to a goal. But big moments as well, because I mean, you know, you've got a lot of time to think about those kind of free kicks. When I think, how long was left about? I think was it like 70, 78, 79 minutes?
Yeah,
Quite late on that.
quite late on, yeah.
So I mean, quite a bit of kind of pressure on it, but he clearly just sort of thrived on it and banged it in the top corner.
Yeah, and it sort of brings the debate with that penalty decision. You look back on it, and I think it's been universally agreed that it was not a penalty. Ollie Watkins went down very soft, minimal to no contact. And does this bring the debate in about the FA Cup, Ben, with VAR? With you look at the game just the night before, Chelsea and Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday had a penalty given but ruled out for VAR, and then Chelsea went up the other end and got a penalty themselves. If this game was at Hillsborough, Sheffield Wednesday would have gotten that penalty because VAR wouldn't have been in use and would have gone 1-0 up and maybe gone on to win the game. So how do you feel about VAR being used in some games and not others?
Well, I think they've got to find a consistency eventually, because I think so far it has been useful. A lot of people complain about it. I'm not entirely sure why. I feel like it's worked more positively recently, because obviously it's still sort of in the works, but we've seen abroad now they've brought it in the Spanish league, and I've seen some games where it's been decided because of VAR, and I think it is. In the past, you look back at replays of decisions where you think that obviously that went in or that didn't go in or there was a penalty or whatever, and that can decide someone's season. And I think Rafa was talking about it. I know it's not non-league, but Klopp was talking about it the last night, because apparently they should add a penalty as well. And I think, especially for the FA Cup, because that could affect a team like Barnet, who it would be really harsh to give away a penalty like that, especially if they lost and then they saw afterwards what happened, and they could even lose in the second round. But I think they really should bring it in fully or just leave it, because it is getting ridiculous, because you can't just pick and choose different grounds, because it becomes fair on other teams and unfair on others, you know.
And quickly before we move on from Barnet, I'd like to just pose the question: does this cup run have a negative effect on their league performance? Because you see the term European hangover is thrown around a lot in the Premier League for teams, especially the Europa League with the Thursday night games, and it seems to, like Burnley they didn't even make it through to the Europa League properly, but it seems like they have experienced a Europa League hangover this season. A Barnet having a bit of an FA Cup hangover. I'll leave the floor out for anyone to jump in on that one.
Yeah, I'd say so, probably. Well, it also adds a bit of pressure, because obviously they've got 4 or 5 games in hand now on teams above, and with them being in that position in the league that they are, it begs the question, like, are they going to have to really perform in these? Because if they lose the first 2 of those games in hand, it really puts the pressure for them to perform in the rest of them. And then say if they don't and end up losing or hardly getting any points out of all those games in hand, then it is going to put them in a bad position in the league.
Alright, and moving on, we go from round near the mid-table, bottom of the table, to right at the very top. Leyton Orient have retaken control at the top of the National League. They've got a 3-point lead, which, yes, isn't massive, but with the amount of teams in the running this season for that top spot, they're doing very well for themselves. And at the weekend just gone, they picked up an impressive 3-0 win at home to Maidstone, bouncing back from 2 straight league defeats at the hands of Salford, who we'll mention soon, and Ebbsfleet. So with Leyton Orient getting back on form, how do you see their season pushing on? Do you reckon they can stay the course at the top of the league, or do you think that it's a matter of time before they slip away, Ben?
I think they will have it now, because I think every team has a bad patch throughout this season. And losing to Salford, I remember I was sat at the Gates press boxes, and every time a goal went in, everyone was just shocked to see how badly they were getting battered. But I think now that game's over, Salford have slipped up a bit, and the teams around them are starting to feel the banana. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but I might have made it myself. But now I think Leyton Orient, if they can pick the momentum up again, obviously you said they have a really good win last time out, and they've got the FA Trophy, they've got Blythe at home. it's all about momentum till the end of the season now with any teams in contention for the promotion places, and I think they've been such a quality side throughout the season and haven't really looked like they've stopped. Like some teams you see weakness, but I think they've just had a few blips and a few bad games, and I think they can get over that. And I think Salford have the inexperience, and they've been up and down this season, and I just think Leyton Orient will carry the form out until the end of the season, personally now.
Yeah, I think they needed that win at the weekend, and they needed a convincing win, which they got with a 3-0. Macaulay Bonne, again, he's not stopped banging him in all season, got himself a brace. He's been a vital part to Orient's promotion push, and I think it's not unfair to say they're a club that deserves to be higher than the National League. They've had a torrid time over the last few years, as we've mentioned previously, and I think it is such an intriguing title race because they are going head to head with a club that's in the complete opposite direction, with Salford rising through the leagues in the last few years rather than Leyton Orient falling, and they've got optimistic ownership where Leyton Orient had very poor ownership and very pessimistic outlook on things. And how do you compare the two clubs in this title race, James?
I think it seems to be a case of a lot of people might not necessarily root for Salford because from a couple of things that I've heard from different people, there's not all that much affection from some groups, particularly other non-league clubs, towards them because there is the feeling that their sort of financial might, they're sort of buying league championships or whatever, which I don't think is fair to an extent, because you look at what the class of 92 guys and the others have done. They seem to have kind of built the club up as well in terms of like the fan base and the stadium and stuff like that, but there's definitely a contrast there, but you get the sense that sort of neutrals might sort of, on the financial sense, maybe sort of drift towards Leyton Orient a bit more, but I think Salford should be, even though they do probably have an advantage over a lot of other teams at that level, they should be applauded for the approach they've taken to a lot of it, because it's not just been a case of sort of just literally trying to buy league championships through just getting players in and stuff with transfer fees that no one else can match, and the club seems to have improved and the surrounding area improved as well, so there's a contrast, and I think it's quite interesting it'll be interesting to see how it will develop, with sort of obviously things that have happened in the last couple of weeks as well. But yeah, it is an interesting situation and an interesting off-field situation as well.
Yeah, like we say, you alluded to it there. David Beckham been confirmed to be. He's got stakes in Salford City now, so more of the class of 92, which means class of 92 now have majority in the club, with their combined shares with David Beckham, Phil and Gary Neville, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs and Nicky Butt, their combined shares. And it's just, they're a club in a very interesting direction, because it's very rare you see a club rise through the league so dramatically. Yes, you see like teams who aren't fit for their division in non-league and rise through a few leagues, but not so much to this high level of burning through like the regional divisions and then National League North. It took them a couple of attempts in the National League North, but they got there. And the first time round in the National League, again, the significant investment with like not just our favourite player Adam Rooney, but up front as well, they've got Danny Whitehead, a former West Ham youth prospect who always looked promising. Maybe didn't hit the heights he might have been expected to at West Ham, but always looked promising, and I think is a good signing for Salford that was made this season. And yeah, they've got a lot to look forward to, but their results in the last couple of weeks haven't. Well, the last month or so since we last did the podcast, they have varied, I think it's fair to say. What did you think to the festive period for Salford, Ben?
I think it was a very key time for them to get a few wins of the belt, but also the defeat against Wrexham must have been quite soul crushing, especially with Wrexham being that high up. But then
5-1.
they beat them a few weeks later, and then the 3-0 away to Leyton Orient. And then you're thinking, well, they're picking up momentum. They beat Dagenham, Redbridge, but slipping up against a Gateshead side where it's, let's be honest, they've got a very depleted squad now.
Yeah.
But like literally a few weeks back, their now current manager, well, at the moment temporary, Ben Clark, was actually on the bench because they had a lack of players. They had to bring him out of retirement just to sit on the bench. So they drew against Gateshead and then again against Halifax, and dropping those points is so key, especially when they're only 3 points behind. That must have mean that they had an advantage at that point. And now that they've dropped points, you look at Solihull, Wrexham, I think Fylde's up there. They're all sort of chasing behind them now. They're only 1 point off, I think, if that's right. Yeah, that's right. So I think the other teams aren't too far off either. But I just think it's just the playoff places that are going to switch, because I think Leyton Orient now should take control. If they don't, it could make for a very interesting finish with about 5 or 6 teams in there that could really, turn up the pressure.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting because I think we were all, it was a few podcasts ago, we were all really looking forward because it was a short space of time where Wrexham, Orient and Salford had integrated and they play each other. And those 2 Wrexham games, it sort of looked like a turning point for Salford because, yes, they lost the next game after that to Barrow, but that was due to 2 late goals and they got a red card. And their disciplinary record hasn't been the best this season, as proven in that 5-1 defeat. They had another red card there later on. But how much do you think that game was a turning point for Salford, Jake?
I think it was massive, obviously, because as you've touched on, it was a big part of the season for them coming up against sides battling for promotion. And to lose that game 5-1 as heavily as they did, and to come around with a 5-day turnaround it was for the return fixture, and end up winning that game 2-0. It was a massive result for them. Obviously, that loss against Barrow wasn't ideal for them, and the 2 recent draws, obviously, in the league hasn't helped them. But it seems as whenever they draw or lose points, Leyton Orient, they either draw or lose, and they drop points. And either side at the moment isn't taking control of the league. So as long as Salford can stay consistent, that they're always going to be up there at the top until the end of the season, I'd say. Yeah,
it's been a very entertaining, like you said, with neither side really getting a grasp and capitalising when the other drops points. It makes for an interesting look at the top because, like Ben mentioned, sides like Fylde, Solihull Moors, Wrexham are all going to be breathing down the necks. And Salford, it was very impressive to go from losing 5-1 to Wrexham and then just, like you say, a few days later go back-to-back winning at home to Wrexham and then away to Leyton Orient in such convincing fashion, like 2-0 up inside the first 10 minutes. No team does that, Leyton Orient, in the National League. No teams do that. But yeah, it'll be a very interesting run-in, and I'm sure we'll keep up every week. We'll mention the title race just because it is such an intriguing prospect this season. Whereas Macclesfield seemed like they had it grasped from a very early point last season, I think, to have this openness. It's going to be really interesting going into the final stages as we're well into the second half of the season now. But one thing I want to touch on is less the footballing side of a club and more the background side of it is the weird and wonderful world that has been Hartlepool United in the last few weeks that has probably had Jeff Stelling crying into his Cocoa Pops. But he's been such a weird time. So I'll give you the rundown. Richard Money was appointed manager and he was doing okay. He helped bring in the loan signings of Danny Amos from Doncaster and Luke Molyneux from Sunderland, who'd previously been at Gateshead earlier in the season. And it looked like he might be hitting a turning point. They picked up a couple of decent results here and there, some better than others. But then, I think it was either 39 or 40 days after he became manager, he swapped roles with former manager and then director of football Craig Hignett. So they swap roles, which is an unusual move as it is. You don't see that often at football clubs, but the club decided it'd be better to keep. They liked the two of them, but they think they'd be better in respective roles. But just days after that, Richard Money departs Hartlepool, as the club described it as in their official statement, because Richard Money did not want to burden them with any more additional costs. But if you look on Twitter, the reason seems to be he was involved in an altercation with Hartlepool fans inside of a chippy just a few days ago. Not a violent altercation. There were just, I think there were just some words said. He was involved in an argument, and he has since departed Hartlepool United, which, funnily enough, he lasted 45 days in total. He lasted 27 days at Solihull Moors, which was his last job. So it's not a great run for him, and I suppose it proves that money can't buy happiness.
That's brilliant.
I had to get that one in.
I like that one.
That's good. That.
But no, it's a weird time for Hartlepool. Like, Craig Hinkler, to be fair to him, his first game since returning to the hot seat, he beat his side beat Braintree 2-1. They go in to Saturday at Ebbsfleet away. They currently sit 15th, I believe, in the National League, and they're a safe distance away. They're 9 points away from the relegation zone. But for a club like Hartlepool, the fans will be expecting better, and a situation like this surely can't be helpful on the pitch, Jake.
Well, of course, it's shown in their results as well recently. You know, their side playing with little to no confidence at the moment, and unfortunately on quite a downward spiral. But of course, when we touch back on money again, like it's quite a weird situation, obviously, and especially with this whole scenario, it's like drama everywhere with him. It makes you question: is he going to struggle to find a future job at this level? I'd probably say no, but like, it obviously does taint his reputation in some respect, and I'm just wondering what they're arguing over in the chip shop, whether it was over the jumper sausage or cod.
I think there were a few batters. I can't take credit for that, James. Just show me a joke on that. No, it's an odd place to have an argument. I don't know why. It's not to do with an argument, but it just reminds me of. Do you know a picture of Steve Bruce in a full kit? Like that. That's one of my favourite pictures of all time. Because that's what I just pictured me as a football manager. I just think I've had a long day of training. I'm not playing anymore. I don't need to stay fit. I'm going to the kebab shop, and I'm not bothered enough to get changed into proper clothes. I'm going in my shorts.
Steve Bruce.
Steve Bruce. He's had a. Did you see it's slightly off topic, but the kick-off with Danny Murphy and Ruth Hullett?
No.
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable to watch.
And it was just...
It's uncomfortable.
I'm not being funny, but we do a stupid little podcast in a room for an hour every Thursday, like, about non-league, and we at least do some research. Like, Danny Murphy and Ruth Hullett are pundits on national television, on BBC for the FA Cup, one of the most viewed competitions in English football, and they just go on with no knowledge, and they're like taking the mick out of Steve Bruce for not taking charge of the Wednesday team earlier. Like, just have some common sense, man. And they were rightly ridiculed. I'm not usually a fan of pundits getting constant pelters on social media, which they do. But this time I was in full agreement. They deserved every bit of abuse that they got. If I'm honest, like, they deserved all the stick, because Alex Scott, who is someone who I think gets a lot of unnecessary criticism.
I think she's quite good.
She tried to basically put them into place and tell them, but the disregard for her by co-pundits sometimes is actually really unsettling.
It's quite hard to watch at times.
Yeah, it really is, because she's a very good, competent pundit, and sometimes she's along not so competent pundits, at least in my opinion. Paulins. But,
I think it's almost this was like a human issue as much as a football issue, wasn't it? That.
I think that's a whole other debate.
Danny Murphy has apologised since, but yeah. Anyway, back to the non-league. My rant over. Yeah, Hartlepool just in a very weird place at the minute. The squad's not as strong as they'd like it to be. The owner seems to be growing more frustrated, because he's said in recent statements that he's invested money, like he's put enough money in. He needs to see performances from the team in return, and it just seems like a very toxic time at Victoria Park. And how far in the distance would a Football League return be for Hartlepool, James?
It does look way off at the moment, and it does seem a shame because I almost feel like everyone has a kind of small attachment to, or anyone who watches Soccer Saturday has like a tiny attachment to them sort of somewhere. But yeah, I think it's just a case of they just clearly need to just get the foundations right, and then build from there. Every club has like times where, call it transition, or just sort of general periods of like unsettlement where things aren't quite right behind the scenes. And obviously in general some clubs can do it, some clubs can sort of be quite chaotic behind the scenes at different moments and still sort of just have kind of sustained success. But I think if they get that right, get a manager in, whether it might be a case of getting a manager in for the rest of this season and then looking to plan ahead a bit more long term from the start of next season, but they're obviously a big club who probably sort of, and it's never the case, no one has a God-given right to be anywhere, but feel like they sort of belong in the Football League, but obviously that's a status that's got to be earned. So I think we're probably, you'd think, maybe 2-3 seasons looking at it now, but things can change so quickly. I think even more so at this level of football and the higher up you go. So yeah, I'd maybe say a couple of seasons, maybe 3, but we could be sitting here this time next year and they could be flying potentially.
Yeah, it's a troubling time for Hartlepool fans. And we stick with clubs in the northeast and stick with clubs going through a bit of a transition period, I think it's fair to say. And I'm going to let Ben take the floor on this one. If you could give us the rundown over the past month or so at Gateshead and the events going on at their club.
Well, I mean, a few months back, obviously a new owner came in. Things looked alright. I thought, well, a new owner's really good, you know, but won the first game 3-0 against Aldershot. First game I had in the press box, actually. And sitting in the playoff places, there's a few games where obviously they're picking up good results here and there, but as soon as the January came, or December, sorry, they lost the manager, and it really baffled me how he went to York. But I think it was something to do with the squad, because obviously Gateshead ended up being quite depleted because Luke Molyneux got recalled and he got sent off to Hartlepool, didn't he? And then Luke Armstrong as well went to Accrington, and Scott Bowden's just been sold recently, yesterday I think, to Chesterfield. And the squad is so depleted, and like I was saying before, the now caretaker manager Ben Clark was on the bench only a few weeks ago because of the depleted squad, which really says something. I think without a win in 6, playoff places are starting to seep away now, and it's looking a lot harder for Gateshead to get in there, especially with like the momentum of the clubs around them. And I think it's going to be really hard to challenge. I think they're going to finish about mid-table this season, but picking up a point against Salford was really good. But on Saturday against Bournemouth, probably should have won. I mean, it was Greg Arley's first game back, which was quite good because he's been really good this season. But without Scott Bowden, our second top goal scorer from the season, has now been sold. So our next top goal scorer is Steve Rake. So I think they've got to get, if Bowden's been sold, that must mean something about the transfer embargo ending, hopefully, and then hopefully get a few players in, because if they don't, then their strip squad will really struggle to see out the season, fitness wise, and obviously with results, just going to struggle to pick them up.
I think, yeah, it's been an odd time for Gateshead, because considering, like I said, the strip squad and the embargo, they've not had a bad season so far. Like they've been in the playoffs for the majority of the season, and when you are strapped with those setbacks within the embargo and the strip squad, I think they've done pretty well for themselves. But I think they're just starting to feel the effects of it a bit more now, and I think mid-table is probably a realistic look for Gateshead, and hopefully in the next season or so they can push on, because we like to see local teams do well, and you do especially. You got a connection to them personally, so we'll have to see. But what I'd like to see from you guys now is your games of the week from the previous weekend in the National League. Is there anyone that would like to raise their hand and go first? Jake?
I'll go first. So my game of the week came from the National League, which was Leyton Orient 3-0 win over Maidstone. Quite a professional performance, given that Orient obvious favourites in that match. But I've chosen it more because of the implications that I think this will have on the league now. I feel like obviously over the Christmas period, both of them and Salford came over a few inconsistent form and results just over that period, which neither side really kicked on. But I feel like with the form they've been on over the last few fixtures and with this 3-0 win, it's a statement to the rest of the competition around them, and I feel like this could be a result at the end of the season which we look back on as a result which Leyton Orient charged their way to promotion.
Alright, it's a good selection. Yeah, it's a, like you said, professional performance.
Yeah.
Did what they needed to do, got the job done. And I'd like to go to James next, please. What have you got for us?
I'm probably going to sort of stay sort of around similar territory that we've been covering. Go Hartlepool. They beat Braintree Town 2-1. And yeah, I think just a case of as we've been talking about how sort of the odds really when you consider the nature of what's been happening over the last couple of weeks or so, odds were stacked against them really. So to kind of just keep the heads, maintain, focus on what at the end of the day a football club is about, which is what happens on the pitch and going behind as well. And 1-0 down at half time, coming back with goals from Nick Kabamba and Josh Hawkes to get the win. So obviously quite a gutsy display by Hartlepool really, to kind of pull that out of the bag and probably give their fans a much needed lift really, and actually think about football rather than backroom issues or whatever you want to call them. So yeah, Hartlepool 2, Braintree 1.
Good selection yet again, and we will go to Ben to finish this little section off.
I went for Fylde's 2-1 win over Solihull Moors
Big
away.
game at the top.
Yeah, because I think it was a big game for Fylde just to pull themselves further towards the top. I think they're 3 points off the top now, and obviously Solihull are also up there, and going away to them and winning 2-1 was a really big result for them, and that really pulls everyone together in that little thread of teams that could shoot to the top or at least bounce around the playoff places to see who, obviously because with the new system, who will play who in the next round of the playoffs, even if the automatic promotion places are gone by the time if Leyton Orient do take over the league. Danny Rowe, now top goal scorer in the league, got a brace, brings him at 21 goals this season, and I think that those two sides are quite difficult to play against for Leyton Orient and Salford. You know that they could be the ones that trip them up along the way, along with Wrexham. You know, so I think that was my game of the season because it was such a big win for Fylde.
Game of the season.
Give it a week.
Big statement from Ben.
Big statement from the Viva star.
He can make any statement he wants. He's been on Viva.
He's been on Viva. He's a national treasure to everyone
We
now.
have to tread very carefully around Ben now because
He's
you
made for
can't
his
see.
big brother call-up.
This is an audio podcast, so you can't see, but he does have 2 bodyguards waiting outside.
Yeah.
So if we say
It's quite
anything too
terrifying.
inflammatory,
Careful,
there
guys.
won't be an episode 6. And if there is, it will be Ben on his own talking about Vera for an hour, I'd probably imagine.
And how you guys have.
At least you got two
Sadly
ready-made replacements there.
Yeah, true. The bodyguards can come in. They might not know anything about football, but
You never
they'll
know,
make
they
Ben
could be
look
like
good.
professionals. Like we're waiting for the non-league paper or something.
No, we can only dream. Shout out to the non-league paper sponsors if you want.
Good point.
But now we'll go on to talk about our teams that we cover because we are journalists after all. And even though I work Saturdays and sometimes can't get to the games, I do my best. But we'll see where it takes us. I start with South Shields, who recently beat Whitby Town 5-2 the other weekend, which took their unbeaten run to staggering heights. I think it went 15 games. Just unreal. They rose to the top of the Northern Evo Stick Premier. And they're going on now to play Mikulova Sports this Saturday, who I went to the reverse fixture of this, and it was a cracking game. It was 3-2 in the end. Mikulova Sports took the lead early on, but it's a very, very good time to be a South Shields fan. And I think I'm just gonna have to check now because I feel very unprepared and unprofessional saying this. I did think they lost recently, but I'm not sure like what competition it was in because I don't know if it was a league game. So you'll have to bear with me, or I might just be getting paranoid and thinking I'm not prepared properly. But anyway, yeah, they won a big game at the top against Farsley quite recently. Dylan Morse getting the winner late on in quite a big game because that put South Shields top of the table. Farsley had led the way for quite a lot this season, and with the squad that they've got a hell of a lot of talent up front. South Shields with like Carl Finnegan, Baxter. They've got so many good players who can push them onto promotion, and I'd be very surprised if they didn't get promotion. Because when I watched them play, they didn't look like an Northern Stick Premier side, Northern Evo Stick Premier side. I apologise. They just looked like a good, solid set-up team who could go far. They've got a good setup. They're a very got good foundations at the club at the minute, and there is right to be optimistic. And we've already really looked at Gateshead in depth, so I'll give you a pass on this one, Ben. We'll go to James. What has been going on at Seaham?
Well, I think the game of the weekend falls firmly into the one of those games category and one of those days category. We were at home up against Bishop Auckland, who are currently second in Northern League Division 1, and it finished 2-1 to Bishop Auckland. And I'll try and briefly run you through the game. So Bishop Auckland took the lead in the 9th minute with Chris Wynn scoring, just sort of tucked home across from close range. It was just basically classic poacher's finish. But then Seaham really kind of grew into the game from there and equalised in the 64th minute with Dan Wilson, who's been brilliant this season, and Mark Collingwood, or Collie as he's known, the Seaham manager post-match described him as talking to Andrew McDonnell, who also works at Seaham, described him as the best back to goal striker in the Northern League, which I thought was quite a good description of him.
Quite a compliment.
Just the way he sort of holds the ball up, and he's just very, very clever the way he brings other players into play, and obviously chips in with a lot of goals as well. I'm not 100% sure if he's top scorer this season, but I think he probably is. And that came after a really good assist from Bobby Taylor, who must have driven good sort of, not literally driven. I should clarify.
Parked his car.
Beep beep.
Well, I mean, there's a few more effective ways in fairness, but good sort of probably 40-50 yards down the left wing before crossing it into him. Then Seaham just kept on creating, really created a number of chances, and probably should have won the game, but played really, really well. Were the better side on balance, probably. Where I was stood, I was alongside quite a few of the Bishop fans, and even they said sort of at the end as well that sort of it was a game where it was difficult to tell how Seaham had lost it, but Bishop won a free kick, controversial free kick, which looked like probably should have gone Seaham's way if anything. After just a 50-50 challenge in stoppage time, that was headed behind for a corner, and then from that corner, Kieran Galbraith rose, continuing the fish theme, just rose like a salmon and just thumped a header down and in. Excellent delivery, in fairness, and very well finished. And if you're going to go for promotion, go for a league title. They're the kind of games you've got to win where you're not necessarily at your best. You've really got to sort of grit your teeth, dig in. If the other team are having a good day and you're not having such a good day, and then when your chance comes, take it. And so it was a bit of a smash and grab, but it was a very good game and plenty of positive signs for Seaham. But obviously, it's a stinger whenever you lose like that. But,
of course, yeah.
But yeah, so next up is concert on the 9th of February for Seaham.
That is a hard game.
Hoping for better things, but against a good side like that, you never really know.
No.
But now it is time for our quiz, and today I've gone for a bit of a different route, and I realise it's not time for our quiz because I forgot to ask Jake about the FA Trophy.
That's right.
Mistakes happen.
I'm not heartbroken.
Mistakes are happen. It's not time for the quiz. I will let you speak. It's just sometimes you frustrate me, so I don't want to let you talk.
Oh.
No, we have fun. We're all good friends.
Of course we are. Yeah. So
apart from Ben's bodyguards on the outside. we'll get to know them better in the coming weeks, I'm sure.
Hopefully
and
we will.
as the acting roles grow, I'm sure the number of bodyguards
It
and
just wait outside.
the limousines that will drive Ben, and we'll get him a golden mic. Actually, that's what we should do. We should get a golden mic. We should make you like the Mariah Carey of the non-league podcast.
Yeah,
I think I can actually feel their eyeballs on my head.
See, I think what Ben is to this podcast now is like someone who's come from such a high level to like mingle with us commoners.
Yeah.
He's like the Adam Rooney of the non-league podcast.
Shameful, really.
Aberdeen to Salford and Vera to
But we have Jake now to talk us through why we want to mention the FA Trophy this week. Why is that, Jake?
Well, as I work weekends, I don't get to cover any teams like you used to. So I've been given the task of filling you in about the local sides that still remain in the FA Trophy. So the first team is Blythe Spartans, who've got recently played Bournemouth, which they beat them 1-0, which in my opinion is a huge scalp for them. Obviously a side which is in a higher division than them. And they, in the next round, come up against probably the hardest team in the whole competition, Leyton Orient. So it's a side which I don't see them getting past, to be honest. But if they do, then wow, it'll be a huge chance of going far in the competition, I think, after that, with all the momentum there that they can build up. And it is good for them to get these positive signs on the pitch, because obviously fell into a huge pit of controversy over the Christmas period after their visit North Korea pitch side advertising, which
Blythe and North Korea.
Yeah, exactly, which has quite predictably got a lot of attention, good and bad really, because you can see that all press is good press, but I don't think it is in this case really. Visit North Korea, it's not a good thing to advertise.
I'd visit North Korea.
Possibly.
I might not
With
come
Blythe.
back.
Yeah, with Blythe. Anyway, second team that's still in
I'm just
is
looking forward to the
Spennymoor
pre-season
Town.
No, sorry. Go
And
to Spennymoor Town.
They've just gotten over a 3-0 win over Sutton, so it's an even bigger scalp than what Blythe's claimed over Bournemouth. And they play AFC Telford in the next round, which I back them to march on in the cup as the home advantage. I think they'll push through a side, which it is a game which is winnable anyway, but I think the home advantage will make it a sure bet.
However,
push them further in the cup.
sorry, can I say something? Telford beat Hartlepool.
I noticed that
2-1
before, yes. Telford did beat Hartlepool, but I still back Spennymoor to beat them.
So, I was about to especially say a plan we've got, but James, I don't think James knows about this. What we discussed the other day, because it was we don't just leave James out. We're not heartless. We don't just cast him aside until the podcast is. We were just in a class that James wasn't in, where we discussed it's a possibility if exam season falls around properly. We would very much like to go to the FA Trophy final, especially if one of the local
If
teams
the
make it
university
there.
want to sponsor us, I don't
Yeah,
mind.
if I mean, we pay you £9,000 a year. Okay? I'm sure you can help chip in for a train to London.
How in there?
No, I'm more than happy to go off my own back, and we'd like to film our experience at the FA Trophy final.
I like the sound of that.
And I think I'd like to post a match reaction podcast, like on the day of the final, or a match preview podcast. But I think it'd be a great thing for us to do.
To be honest,
And especially, I think I'm 100% going to do it if Spennymoor or Blythe get there 100%. But even if not, I think it'd be a great thing for us to do.
Oh, aye.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think for James, this is like, you know, when they have like Saturday night takeaway, and then they take the kids away to Disneyland.
Take James to Wembley.
He's like,
We should have
wow.
waited. We shouldn't have not mentioned it. We should have waited until like
Surprise them one more.
the semi-final, like
Wembley.
the week before. We should have just presented him with the ticket on the podcast and just see his reaction. We've missed a great game. But now-
I still feel like that.
But to be fair-
going off to Disneyland though, so it's okay.
But
The FA Cup, the FA Trophy final is better than Disneyland.
The FA Trophy. I mean, the FA Trophy does look, I'd imagine, with the with like the handles and stuff. It probably does look a bit like Mickey Mouse. So.
But now, at the second time, we are actually doing the quiz now. I'm not just rudely stopping people from talking. And this week's quiz is... So I have here 6 players who, at one point in their career, have played for a non-league club. That might have been at the start, might have been at the end. I am going to tell you the clubs in order of which this player has played for, and when you think you know it, you don't have to wait for me to get the end. If you think you know it, shout it out. You get one guess per. Everyone gets one guess per go, obviously, unless someone gets it right. So we start off.
Let's go.
Start off with one of the shorter ones. This player started at Oadby Town.
What? Sorry.
Oadby Town.
Oadby Town.
No one wanted to jump in there. Then moved on to Ilkeston.
Nah.
Still no one. Then moved on to Sheffield United.
It's gonna be Che Adams or someone like that.
I mean, do you want to guess?
Okay, I'll guess Che Adams.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh yeah, get in.
I don't know why you just went, it's going to be Che Adams or something. You could have just gone, Che Adams.
So I wasn't sure if we were going to make a noise or not, so I was just
What,
like,
like
oh shit.
Seeing he's an older brother of mine.
We forgot about the
Yeah, of relation to Jake, so he should be.
I should have got that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he should have. He should have.
Sorry.
God, we're full of superstars on this podcast.
I know.
Che Adams is over. James is just going to tell us that like Leonardo DiCaprio is like a distant uncle next week.
I'm keeping that low key.
He's just got a text like, how does he know? But yeah, of course, Che Adams started at Oadby Town and then made some waves at Ilkeston. Had a few clubs sniffing around. Sheffield United was the one that got to him. Made a couple of £1 million move to Birmingham 2 seasons ago. And now is on the radar of Southampton, and who have had an £8 million bid rejected. So yeah, we go on to. I'd say we've gone from the shortest one. I think we're moving on to the most lengthy one as number 2, and I'll just mark that down. That I've got a chart here to see who's in the lead because we always forget. Benny's in front. So pay attention because there's a lot of loans here.
Oh man.
This player started off at Tottenham. Went out on loan to Leyton Orient.
Call first.
Oh, he's got it 2 in.
Oh,
What the hell?
that's the North London knowledge coming in there.
Jesus. How did you know that?
I was looking up on him before the podcast.
Oh.
I think after I saw his Bruce Barner.
So yeah, because to take you through how far we had left there, I was expecting that one to go right to like the last couple. We had Spurs, Leyton Orient on loan. He then went to. Go on, I'll see if you can carry this on.
I can't carry it now. That's all I know.
He went
Barner
to
at the end.
He went to Torquay on loan, Southend on loan, York on loan, Wigan on loan, then joined Peterborough permanently, went out on loan to Mansfield, and then was signed permanently by Barnet.
What the hell?
That's it's a hell of a trek, but he's making waves at Barnet at the minute. He's doing some great stuff there.
Big shack.
And we now go. I'm just going to pick and choose. I've not got him in any particular order. Yeah, let's go for this one. This player's non-league club where he started was Baldock Town. He then moved on to Watford. Then to local team Sunderland. Then went to Aston Villa. To West Bromwich Albion. To Birmingham City.
Craig Gardner.
Oh no, it's
Oh,
not
was
Craig
a good
Gardner.
guess. That was a good shout though.
Yeah.
He went from Birmingham to Blackpool. Anyone? Ben, you're pulling a face which says that you want.
I'm just trying to think.
Jake's signaling to me that he knows, but he's not allowed to
I
guess.
know.
Fraser Campbell, not Fraser.
No.
It's not Fraser Campbell, no. Ben, the floor is yours. Shall I give you the next team?
Go for it.
Blackpool to Crystal Palace.
Oh wow, it's still going.
And then the final team,
I know.
he went from Palace. He finished his career at Leicester City.
I know. I'm allowed to chip in if you get it wrong.
You won't get a point, but you can just say it for
Alright.
pride's sake.
Yep, for pride I will.
Oh my god.
I'm going to give you 10 seconds, Ben.
I'm gonna have to give up. I have no idea.
Jake, do you want to say who you think it is?
Kevin Phillips.
It is Kevin Phillips.
Oh damn it! One of Sunderland's top goal
You
scorer.
jumped in too early with Craig Gardner.
It was only just after that. It was the team after that, so it's like.
Yeah,
I forgot you went to Leicester
Villa, West
then.
Brom, Birmingham. I can see like Craig Gardner does fit into that little like
And
triad of
Sunderland as well,
clubs.
obviously.
I thought I was gonna say James McLean for me.
But it was only after I realised, wait, Watford to Sunderland. Then
Yeah.
I put like Blackpool and Birmingham in there. I was
Obviously,
like,
Sunderland legend. Kevin
Kevin
Phillips.
Phillips.
30, didn't he? 30 goals in the Premier League
Yeah.
one season.
Right. So currently we're 3 down and no points in that one, but Jake and Ben tied on 1. James looking to get his first on the board. That wasn't meant to be taking the mickey. It was
My next training, I'm looking up.
So now we'll go to another player that started at Tottenham, went out on loan to Chesterfield, then went on loan to Millwall, then on loan to Portsmouth, went out on loan and then joined permanently to Wolves, went to Blackpool. Notice how the non-league side hasn't come in yet, so try and think about that. Went to Fulham, then went to Gillingham, and then his most recent club is Billericay Town.
I was gonna guess Jamie O'Hara, but
You've got it spot on.
yes.
Yes, man.
Jamie O'Hara. Yeah.
I think I said I was going to
Famed
guess.
It's already so obvious when it's like.
I was
found
tempted
out.
to put another arrow and put Celebrity Big Brother, but
The show which Ben will be going on soon.
oh yeah. No, he's too big for that. I'm a Celebrity that
I'm
he's
saying nothing.
Celebrity Chase.
Celebrity cheese, bloody hell.
No, he's
Enough
gonna be on all the shows. He's gonna be hosting the Chase soon. Bradley Walsh better be scared. But now Benny's in the lead with
I like
2.
Big Coast. I like Bloody Wash.
So I'm just gonna mark off which ones I've done because I'm doing them in a really random order.
Why?
So we've got 2 left.
2 left. That's all to play for.
It is all to play for. James, you can still fight back, and I will find, if we are tied, I will find a tiebreaker. So, the next club started off at Chelmsley, then moved on to Walsall. During his time at Walsall, he was loaned out to Halesowen Town, and when he finished his spell at Walsall completely, he moved and remains at Watford.
Troy Deeney.
He's got it.
Oh, good shout. I give it that. That was a good one, that.
So we're going to this last one. If Jake or Ben get it, then they win. If James pops in, then we go to a tie break between Jake and Ben.
I want to win again. 'cause
So
I'm not-
if you want to continue this thrilling quiz, James,
I can sort of make
extra time it's going to go to.
Indeed.
Extra time.
extend.
okay. So we go for it's another player that started and then worked their way up. So this player started at Grays Athletic. Was then moved on to Southend. During his time at Southend, he was loaned out twice to Leyton Orient and then Hereford. He then joined Scunthorpe permanently. He was later moved on to Celtic. No one jumping in. And then he was loaned and then bought permanently at Sheffield Wednesday.
Gary Hooper.
He's got it. Ben wins. Ben wins. Yes, it was Gary Hooper. And I missed out Norwich on there. Sorry, I should have had Norwich. Should have been in there.
Yeah,
That's my bad. It should have gone to.
I
It should have gone
still
Norwich.
got it. I still got it.
It should have gone Norwich, then Sheffield Wednesday. I apologise for that. But yeah, Ben 3-2. Thrilling quiz. James, we'll get you on the board next week. It's all right.
I did really like that format, even though it was a listening brief from mine.
It was a thinker.
It was a thinker. I was quite happy when I came up with that idea, if I'm honest.
That was good.
But yeah, I think that was a quite entertaining section of the show, and it's a good way to close off the show. I think it's been great to be back, back into the swing of things, back into non-league football. And James, thank you for joining me.
No worries at all.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you very
I had a
much.
crook in the throat there. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you very much.
And of course, thank you to Vera megastar, soon to be. I think Robert Downey Jr.'s contract's expiring at Marvel.
Yeah.
So
Basically,
I mean, your next Iron Man is here right in
Well,
front
actually,
of us.
I've heard that Stan Lee's dying wish was to make her own superhero for Ben Robinson.
Oh, God.
Oh, drug dealer man.
Lazarus.
That's a good one.
But yeah, expect to see Ben on a big screen some point soon. So we'll see this out with. So thank you very much. I will say thank you Ben for joining us.
Thank you, Harvey.
And thank you to his bodyguards for not getting violent. It's been great to be back on the Non-League podcast, and we will see you all next week. Goodbye.